All right, on this episode of the Fit Rockstar Show, we have the Chick Magnet. He is the voice of bodybuilding, the voice of the Olympia. He's also an IBB pro, Mr. Bob Chicherillo.
What's up, Isabel?
What's up?
Thank you very much. I'm here all day.
Not really, but okay.
No, not really.
Did I say your name right, Chicherillo?
Yeah, you got it.
Chicherillo?
Yeah, you should have it by now, right?
Right. I just met you like yesterday. I don't know what you're talking about. So, Bob, thanks for coming on. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. It's been a long time in the making. Finally made it to the Fit Rockstar Show.
Yeah,
so
but I mean,
this is exciting.
You had a long flight too earlier in the week. You came from Kuwait?
Kuwait, yes.
Yeah.
Always exciting.
Are you recovered from that? Or are you still...
pretty decent, actually. It's a great show, honestly. Badr Bodai and the Oxygen Gym crew has been putting that one on for years, and I've been part of every one of them. So they invited me back out, and I can't say no to Badr. So there I was.
Okay.
I don't speak the language, but they.
You announce names pretty well.
I do my best. It's not easy.
No.
So,
how do you practice that?
You don't. You just do it.
You just do it.
You just do it.
You just
like
take
Nike.
a guess.
That's it.
But you kind of sound it out like.
Well, there's a lot of there's like some of them got 3-4 names, so there's a lot of Abdul Rama, right. Abdulaziz. Sometimes it's all three in a row. Lots of Muhammads. So, but they get it. Listen, they understand numbers. They understand their own names. So, unfortunately, I don't have a whole lot of material on these shows. So the jokes don't really.
Translate. So no dad jokes.
Nah, not so much.
They're very blessed to not have a dad joke. But so you have, first of all, you're from Rochester, New York, right?
Upstate New York,
Upstate New York.
Yeah.
Buffalo fan?
Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse. Yeah, it's all the same.
Okay.
Same area. So, I grew up a Bills fan and the Cowboys, of course.
Okay. Cowboys is Dallas, though. But how did you become a Dallas fan?
I was a Dallas fan, actually, before a Buffalo fan, just because that was my team from when I was a kid.
Okay.
But those were the glory years of the 70s. You're talking Roger Staubach and, Tony Dorsett and just all kinds of great players of that era. Mm-hmm. That's when Dallas was kicking ass and taking names. Now, getting back there.
Yeah, you were close this past year. So, but anyway, so you come from Rochester, which is like the big hotbed of bodybuilders, right?
Yeah.
So who else besides yourself? Who else do we have there?
Rochester's got a long history of great bodybuilder. Danny Padilla, most people know, the original, the OG giant killer. There's a lot of giant killers now. But
I was going to say, can we call, like, is there like a thing where once this person has a name, that's it, they stick to it, or can...
I mean, it's fine now. I mean, listen, he's been retired for years. It's cool, but... I'm always a little hesitant on that stuff because, again, I grew up, he's the giant killer, right? That was his claim to fame, so... Pete Grimkowski is from Rochester. George Farah, super trainer.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of who else.
It's a lot of people.
Well, there's more. I mean, but yeah, those are some of the top names. That's all basically all out of the same gym.
So when did you get the bug to compete? Did you know, like at a young age, do you know what, I'm going to be a bodybuilder? Or did you just see a magazine and got inspired? How'd that happen?
I was a huge comic book collector as a kid.
And when you say huge, that means you had a ton of them.
Oh, I'd get them all, yeah. I mean, and back then they were like 20 cents.
20 cents?
Yeah, I remember when they went to 25 cents, because now you're only getting 4 for $1. So it was, it sucked, but, I'd still get your allowance or do some chore, whatever, get some money. But it was all Marvel. I was a big Marvel guy. So Fantastic Four, Spider-Man, Hulk, Iron Man.
So who was your superhero
Avengers.
that you liked?
I liked them all. I mean, I literally collected all of them. I mean, if it was a Marvel, I wasn't into the DC too much.
So you didn't call yourself Superman?
No, I mean, I liked Superman. I mean, it was cool. And then, of course, Superman movie came out in 78, maybe somewhere around there. So, which was huge at the time, of course, But no, I was a huge superhero fan, and so that was kind of my thing. And if you're going to be a superhero fan, you want to look like a superhero, right?
So then you decided to take on weights.
So, but right around that era when I grew up, now I was born in 65, so I'm, 75, 76, like the Hulk came out, Pumping Iron came out in 77. So, right about there, I'm going into junior high. So it was about that time I, got a weight set for Christmas and started, lifting some weights.
What kind of weights did you have? The kind of like the cement?
Yeah, like those interlocking
Right.
plastic, cement filled.
Your mom got you this? Your mom and dad?
Yeah, I got it for Christmas, actually. I asked for a weight set, and it had like the bench, the weights, the
wow.
little spring
Was
things.
it the weird kind of thing?
I don't know what it was. I can't remember
What's the spring thing?
Yeah, the little spring things.
What is that?
They're like these little spring things that you're supposed to increase
For
your grip.
Your grip. Oh,
Yeah.
the old school spring.
And then they have like the big spring that you pull
Yes.
So you pinch your skin in there, and that
Ouch.
always felt good.
That sounds painful.
But yeah, that's where I started, and then entered my first show at 13.
13 years old, and you actually cleaned house at your first show, right?
I did all right. I'd actually lost a show, which I'm still pissed
You
about.
lost a show.
Still. But I won 3 ribbons. Right? They had these ribbons for best body parts.
ribbons.
So I won 3 of them, which I still have. And but I lost the show. It was my first entry into politics. They had some of the parents judging this thing in the neighborhood. Come on. I mean,
Right.
so needless to say.
So this wasn't the one with Sean. Which is the one that Sean Ray
No,
kicked
that
your
was the
ass?
Nationals. So,
Nationals.
so I competed a few years and then went to the Natural Mr. America competition.
Natural, Mr. America.
Natural Teen America.
Wow.
Took 4th. And again, I was 15, I think, at the time.
Is this the one with the video where you're walking across the stage and you got the little, really poofy hair?
No, that was before that, actually. No, I actually take that. That's after.
Okay.
That's like a year or 2 after that.
Okay.
Because I was only like 15 when I did the America. So.
Okay. So
But and then me and Sugar Sean met at the 1984 Nationals, I believe, or 85. It's one of those.
who was the first pro bodybuilder you met?
The first pro. I'm trying to think. The first pro I met was probably, it was either Danny Padilla or, it had to be somebody from my hometown, right? So it's probably Danny, if I remember.
When did you get on the American Gladiators? Was that after all your success?
Yeah, well, no, I shouldn't say after. No, it was kind of before. So that the Gladiators thing came up in 91.
Okay.
So 87, I make my national debut, taking 5th. Again, Sean Ray won his class, won the overall. Just always am I just a
He was
fly
just
in the
right
ointment,
there.
you know?
Yes.
Well, listen, he was great at the time. And he ended up beating Phil Hill, who won my class in the heavies.
So you became, you got into bodybuilding. You really loved it, obviously. You kept at it. You're like, I'm going to be a pro, blah, blah, blah. 87,
Mm-hmm.
Junior Nationals, right? So how did you get on the cover of Muscular Development?
Yeah.
How did that happen? You won that show, right?
Yeah, well, you got to go back to 86 for the real story, because in 85, I compete in my last teenage show.
Okay.
Now I'm going to turn 20, going to the men's stuff. So, I had a pretty good teenage career. Won a bunch of titles, the whole thing, and second at the Nationals. Sean Ray won.
Damn that Sean Ray.
Like a fly in the ointment, I'm telling you. So, to this day. So now I go into the men's stuff. So I go in the 86 men's junior nationals, and I got smoked. Didn't even make the cut. Back then, you had to make the cut. There was none of this,
Is this the beer and pizza?
Pizza and beer.
So how does that work? Is it top 10?
Top 15. So you'd go
Wow.
out there, you would literally do one series of poses, go off the stage.
How many people in your class?
Well, I was in the light heavies at the time. So it was a big class. I mean, there's probably 40 something.
So you didn't even make,
Didn't make the cut.
Nothing.
No.
Were you pissed?
They went through 15 numbers. I wasn't one of them.
Were you pissed?
Yeah, sure, I was pissed. So I was so pissed that I took the next year, trained with blinders on, because, I knew I was better than that, but it was like, I just needed to mature and get bigger and, just need another year in the gym. Mm-hmm. So came back in 87 and won the heavyweights and the overall.
This is where this is.
That's where that comes from, yeah.
So you won. And then, so you didn't have internet back then or social
No,
media.
no.
So how did you did they contact you and let you know, hey, we're going to have you on the
Nope.
cover? How did you even get the shot?
That is an interesting, because that's the actual first cover, that and the NPC News, but that may have come out
Wait a minute,
after.
the first cover of Muscular Development?
No, the first cover of the NPC
Yeah,
News.
this one right here, yes.
Yeah, that's volume 1, number 1.
I was getting into that.
Yeah, but that cover though was a regular, like, back then you go in the supermarket
Right,
and all the
right.
there was probably geez, I don't know, 7, 8 different kinds of muscle.
And you didn't know anything. Yeah.
No, well, they didn't really tell you nothing. You know, again, there's no internet, there's no nothing. You know, so what would happen was you would do a photo shoot or such, or at or they would take a picture at a competition. The photographers would submit them to the magazines, Muscle and Fitness, Flex when that came out, Muscular Development. There was a bunch of them back then. Muscle Digest, Muscle Mag Illustrated. I mean, like I said, there was a ton of them. And then, you know, if you were a photographer, you just got lucky that they picked your picture because they would get paid more if they used it for the cover. But they would never let us know unless the photographer knew in advance.
Sure.
So that particular cover, I remember like it was yesterday going to the supermarket because I would go, of course, you know, back then, you know, you ain't got no money or nothing, so you're just flipping through the mags while you're standing there. And I remember I was standing there with my arms folded, looking at the magazines, and all of a sudden I was looking at myself with my arms folded. And I'm like, and it kind of freaked me out for a second because I'm like, what the hell? I'm like, that's me. And that's literally how I found out I was on the cover, is I'm looking at my cover.
Did you buy all those magazines?
Yes, absolutely. There was,
you know,
there was 8 of them. I bought 8 of them. You know, I couldn't.
Did your mom buy?
I'm giving them to
magazines
strangers,
too?
people I met. You know, the whole thing. Yeah, of course. You know, I mean, it was huge. You know, the family. Oh my God, you know, you're on the cover.
Yeah.
But that was my first cover shot, and then
So this was cool because this is actually the first edition of the NPC News.
Volume 1, number 1.
Volume 1. So
Handle that gingerly. You know how much money that's worth on eBay?
How much money?
Lots.
I looked it up. Actually, it's $1.
Yeah.
So
I think not. So yeah, the NPC News comes out, and there I am on the cover, and that picture is actually taken by Peter Potter.
Oh, I know.
You remember that from Florida, right?
Yeah.
And you'll see coverage in there. There's your buddy Lou.
Oh my God! There's Lou DeVito.
Yeah, Lou DeVito, my buddy, he's my training partner.
Big Lou.
You've met Big Lou.
Yeah.
And so there's pictures in there, but you know that's the coverage of the 87 Junior Nationals.
Well, that's how we found
Look
out.
how much go on the back cover. Look how much the NPC card is.
The NPC card is free. No, $20.
$20.
What is it now?
It's got 100 and something, I'm sure.
Well, I
But
think when I paid, it was like $75.
I remember. Now that's 87. We started. Literally, when the NPC started, we switched because the only thing that was around back then was the AAU. So when this NPC thing started, we were a part of it and all that. So, but I remember when the cards, I want to say they were like $5 or $10.
So the interesting thing is, this was the start of something big for you.
Yeah,
I mean, you're
that's what started
literally
it,
the
yeah.
pretty boy now, the bodybuilding. You had a really nice physique, still do.
Yeah, thanks.
You know, a lot of I'm trying to get kudos here, but you had a very pretty physique. But the sad thing is, it took you not 1, not 5, not 6, not
Right.
10, 13 years to get your pro card, right?
That's right.
And it's not because, I mean, it's not that you were good, because you're good.
It's
But it was
just pacing myself.
just
That's all.
pacing yourself. But it was tough back then. Right?
Yeah, it was really
I mean,
tough.
every single athlete was a competitor, right?
Well, yeah. One, there wasn't as many classes. There was no welterweight. There was no super heavyweight.
Right.
So those were added in later. So back then, heavyweight was as high as it got, and that was a big class, obviously, because
Sure.
you could be any weight over 198 and a quarter. So whether you were 200 or whether you were 280, you were in the same class.
What's that story that you said where you were doing a show and the guy in front of you was like a monster, and then you had the same posing music?
Oh yeah, the guy in front of me, that guy was Phil Hill.
Hill.
Actually, that's from the first national show I did in '87, national championships.
You both had the same posing routine,
Yep.
or the music,
Yeah.
and then you're like, you asked him to change it
The
up.
chances are 0, right? And I got Barbara Streisand, all right, a song called Somewhere. It's very slow, but it builds up and it's dramatic, right? And so I got this whole routine. I'm going to bring the house down. Yeah, there's only 2 people left in the show, which is Phil Hill, who's going to win this show. This guy was incredible, and me. And he comes out, and I hear my music playing. And I go to the DJ guy, and I'm like, hey, did you just put my music in? And he's like, no, I got you. He holds up the tape, because you had the tapes back then. And he says, no, I got yours right here. And I'm like, oh, man. I can't go out there to the same song. I'm going to get booed out of there. I'm going to start throwing lettuce and tomatoes like in the movies and stuff. Why would people bring vegetables to a thing like that anyways? I don't know. I've never understood that. But, so I literally had him switch to some song I'd never heard of.
What was it? Do you remember?
Couldn't even tell you.
And how'd you do at this show?
I did all right. I took 5th.
5th.
top 5, 21 years old. So not a bad start.
No.
It was only a matter of time. Within a year or two, I'd have my pro card.
So 2000 is when you won your pro card.
Ended
at
up winning
USA's?
in 2000.
Yeah.
So,
And then when did you meet Jim Mannion? Was it at USA's? You met him prior to that, obviously.
I met Jim prior to any show. Actually, it was when Jim was literally putting the NPC together.
Oh, wow.
And I met Jim, and JM was with him. Now JM's 3 years older than me, so I think I was around 15. So he was 17, turning 18. JM.
Now a lot of people don't realize this. So Jim would actually travel around to scout for athletes. Is that how that works?
Not athletes per se, but promoters, people that want to get involved, judges, officials. Yeah, but listen, you're going back to 81, okay? And Jim is going to split off from the AAU, which had a bodybuilding component to it. But AAU did everything, any sport.
People always ask how I got here. I was willing to work just a little harder than everyone else. Every damn day. If I can have hundreds of hours back, you know I'm gonna grab them. Spending hours prepping chicken, rice, and vegetables, F that. I rely on perfect nutrition. I rely on trifecta.
So bodybuilding was just kind of a separate division. So Jim had taken that and kind of gone on his own, formed the NPC. Well, the only way to get people on board back then was to go travel around, right?
Right.
So Jim, listen, he did the work. He walked the walk and talked the talk while he was doing it, and he got judges and officials, and so he came to Rochester and met with the owner of the gym, and who was a promoter, put the shows on. And he decided, I'll go with you, So that's how Jim created the NPC.
Is that where you met him in Rochester or before?
Yeah, pretty sure it was Rochester that we met.
Were you nervous when you met
It
him?
could have been in Pittsburgh. I don't remember because I would travel, and the owner of the gym, again, who was a judge at this point, we would travel together. He would judge the shows, and I would compete as in the teen division. So we drove everywhere, and so I might have met Jim along the way. But I literally remember when they put it together and we switched to this NPC thing.
Well, it's one of the best organizations in the world, obviously.
Absolutely.
NPC Worldwide.
Yeah.
So were you nervous when you first met Jim? Were you like, oh, hi?
Well, no, I didn't know. He's just, listen, I'm a 15-year-old kid, and Jim is probably, if I had to do the math, he's what, let's see, 78 now? So...
And still kicking ass.
So he's what, 22 years older than me. So yeah, he was still in his 30s when I met Jim. 38, 39, somewhere around there.
So you won the USA's in 2000,
Yep.
which was a huge victory for you 13 years later.
Huge.
Would you say that's your biggest bodybuilding achievement or the Masters?
No, the USA.
USA.
Yeah,
right.
nothing could ever top the US. If I won the Olympia,
That would still
it
not,
wouldn't have topped the USA.
just because of all the work.
Yeah,
and effort.
because it took me so long to get,
And you never quit. Why?
because I knew I had what it took. I was
Cocky.
getting beat by. I knew I was better than these guys for years. And that's with all due respect. Listen, every one of them won. They did their homework. I didn't do mine. It didn't come through. I was actually better when I first got in. When I first got to Medina, because I was fifth in the first show, and then I was second. At the 88, I went to Vegas, competed in the couples there.
Yeah, so that's interesting. You've done a lot of different things.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
the couples, how did you get into that? Because
Well, one of the judges was a guy named Terry Bouchard. He was married to, I don't know, were they married back then? I don't know if they were married, but if they weren't, they were getting married to Debbie Bouchard, who competed. So they were in the business, they were in the bodybuilding and all that. So, and they ran some shows up in the Albany area. So we had become good friends along the way. He would, I'd be at all the shows, we got to talking and all that. And in at the end of 87, he approaches me and he says, "Hey, what do you think about teaming up with Debbie and having you guys go in the Couples USA?" Like, oh, okay. Well, I was going to the USA anyways, so I'm like, well, okay, that's cool. So we practiced and rehearsed and did all our stuff. We had a couple guest spots around because we didn't live in the exact same area, and we did good. It took a third place.
And I was going to say, for those who have never seen the video, it's actually on YouTube where
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
doing the couples. And there's just one part where you flip her up in the air.
Yeah.
And I feel like you're going to drop her because
It felt like I was going to. I do drop her. Now it's a controlled drop, right? Now she's got a
oil and all that stuff on. I would think.
well, she's yeah. That's where it gets fun, right? Now she's got a cheerleading background, so she's got all these moves, and and I got to learn these things, right? Because we're going to do this move where I lift her up over my head, right? And then I literally they call it a death drop, right? Already doesn't have a good sound to it, So we had practiced this flawlessly, right? Every time, boom. So all I really do is she's the one that does all the work. She kind of does a tuck and roll. You've seen this in like cheerleading things for years, I'm sure. And then boom, she ends up at the bottom, and I got her by the leg and the arm, and it kind of makes a pose out of it. It's actually pretty impressive. So we nailed this thing 100 times, except we did a guest appearance at Darien Lake, which is up in the upstate New York area. And it's something like this big pavilion, and somehow we got this guest posing there. So this is the first time we'd actually done it under lights, and more importantly, with oil on, which I found out real quick makes it real challenging.
Right.
So I almost dropped her on her head because I kind of do my move while it's slippery, So I had to kind of get used to that. But, luckily she kind of hung on, or I hung on to her, and nobody died.
Thank God.
Yeah, thank God. But, so that was 88, 89. I was second place. So I was right there. I'm knocking on the door. 90. I think I took a fifth. So I was still in the top 5. 91. The much talked about, toughest nationals in
Can't
history.
find that video anywhere.
Still looking for the video out there. If anybody knows, let me know, because still looking for the prejudging video or any video for that matter.
The thing is, you're a warrior. You've never gave up. And so there's other things I want to talk about that makes you such an incredible athlete and person overall. So you went through challenges. I know one of your shows, I think it was, I want to say it was 87, but where you tore your hamstring? Something happened with your hamstring and you still competed?
Oh, no, my ankle. That was at that show, actually.
87?
That was the 87 Junior Nationals.
And you still competed. And
I actually finished off, long story real short, because I know there's probably other things you want to get to, but
yes.
I was actually taking a test for the sheriff's department. You had to do the physical and then the written and all that stuff. So the day after the New York State, so I competed in the New York State Saturday night, took second, and then Sunday morning was the physical part of this. So literally the next morning after I got done competing, I got to do this run and push up, set up, the whole thing. And on the run, we just happened to be on this area, and it was it was like at a college or something like that. And I'm running. It wasn't a big deal. I mean, it wasn't like you had to be blazing fast to get through it. But I'm trucking along, and my foot happened to catch like this area that was the had like a little pothole type of a thing, and I rolled my ankle, went down the whole thing, had to get up, had to finish the race, otherwise you're out.
Right.
So I'm hobbling across, but still finished under the time. But I tore some ligaments in my ankle. Now this is about 5 weeks ahead of the Junior Nationals. So I literally trained the last 5 weeks on crutches for that show, and won.
Well, then you somewhere down the line you also had a back injury.
Yeah, that was 98.
98.
Yeah. So 98.
This is not lifting weights either. This is like playing baseball.
No. None of the injuries ever come from lifting weights. They're always some weird stuff. But no, I was playing baseball actually, and blew out my back on a nice home run swing. We had a softball team at the gym. The Samson All-Stars.
Samson All-Stars.
That's right. Records are still sitting there today. But, yeah, we had a great time. We had a great team, kicked ass, the whole thing. But, I took a nice mighty swing. The back was always a little suspect. Like I only had a threshold of about 550 on squats. I'd get 600 or so, and boom, there goes the disc. Mm-hmm. So, I'd have a herniated disc every here and there. It was just a weak area.
But this baseball game that obviously just pulled it out.
Snapped it right in half. Yeah.
You had surgery then, and then
well, actually, I went to the 98 USA, needing
the
this.
back still.
Well, what happened the surgery didn't get scheduled until after the show, so I just said, well, what the hell, might as well go in it anyway. So, of course, I didn't do anything. I didn't place it at all, but immediately had surgery when I got back. That's when it was scheduled. So yeah, L4, L5. They took out the broken disc and fused the.
So you were like 6'4". Now you're like
I was like 6'6", and took like 6 inches out of me.
Yeah, so. I figured that. So anyway, moving on. So you did that, and then you did a show a year later, a few months later?
Yep. I had the surgery,
She's still trucking.
Yeah, well, recovered from it and had to get my stuff together because I wanted to compete still.
A lot of people compare your physique to Bob Paris because you had that really pretty, the tiny little waist, big flaring legs, the nice lats, the big shoulders.
That's good company.
Yeah. How did you practice your posing? How did you master that? Because again, we didn't have the internet back then. So how did you?
You had guys in the gym that would guide you, and
Did you practice like all the time, just boom?
Yeah,
boom,
it's
boom.
closer to the show, the more you'd practice,
Right.
Obviously.
Right.
But you just kind of emulate some, though. You catch some film here and there of some bodybuilders or VHS, would make its way to you. So you'd see some of the Olympians or Bob Paris or, So of course, you'd emulate who you want to look like. What style you like best.
Who was your guy that you like to emulate?
Well, he was definitely one of them. I like Paris was excellent. It was mostly the smaller guys though, because the bigger guys never could pose for anything. So big, just lunking around and.
Now, your favorite bodybuilder back then or growing up was Lou Ferrigno, right?
Yeah, Big Louie.
And you actually got to play him in a movie.
I did.
Once or twice?
Just once.
I thought. Okay, I thought twice.
Yeah. Interestingly, when I did the Malcolm in the Middle episode with my buddy Chris Cook, and there's a whole bunch of us and a bunch of Rich Piana, God bless him. Chris Cook was me and him were co-stars, and we actually got co-star status.
It was a big payday. Too,
Brian Cranston, who everybody knows now.
Very jealous of that.
Yeah, he was. Brian Cranston actually directed that episode that we did, which was pretty cool, And then, of course, he went on to much bigger things with Breaking Bad, and all that. But great guy, though. Absolutely great guy. But while I was filming Malcolm, I was actually getting ready to film See Arnold Run, which was a film about Arnold running for governor, but they had flashback sequences to when he was bodybuilding, and which was basically 1975, 74. So I had to grow the sideburns out. So if you actually go watch Malcolm in the Middle, you'll notice I got these big sideburns kicking. It's because I was growing them out for the other role.
I was actually in Venice Golds when you were talking to Lou, because Lou didn't really seem very happy.
Big Louie, no, Louie was trying to play himself.
Right.
I didn't know this until afterwards. It was apparently he had tried out for the role, and apparently I made a better Lou than Lou did. So so I got the role. Now, keep in mind, it was supposed to be years ago. He was a little too old at that point to play himself. You're talking supposed to be the 70s. So being much younger, I was a better candidate. So.
Well,
but we maintained our friendship, though.
Lou's cool. Well, listen, he always comments on your stuff, and he loves your stuff. So
yeah, I love Lou. But when pumping, everybody loved Arnold. I loved Arnold, right? But I identified more with Louis
because Italian.
Well, Italian from New York, right? The whole thing. But more than that, this is a little bit of a stretch, but not much. More because of his hearing problem. Now, I never had hearing problems, but I did have a speech impediment. So, which was a problem when I was a kid. So, interestingly, I would.
When you say what was your problem? What did you do?
There were certain words I wouldn't say properly.
So you sound like me.
Like ours were more of an ow sound. Mm-hmm. Like a car would be cow.
Sure.
So I had problems with certain, but of course, listen, I don't know, 7, 8, 9 years old. So you're getting teased by the other kid, they would, make fun of you. And all that stuff. So I kind of identified more to Louis because he had to, overcome his issues are much more than mine.
Sure.
But then once I got, I had to go to a speech pathologist and the whole thing. So
you also cosplay a lot. So did you ever cosplay as the Hulk?
No, not really. I did the Hulk once for like a Halloween. There was no cosplay, but you dressed up for Halloween. That was it.
Yeah, but you dressed so. One of the things that a lot of people don't know about you is that you actually went to children's hospitals. You would dress up. Yeah. Can you tell us the story? Because it makes me cry when I hear that.
Well, don't cry. There's no crying in bodybuilding.
No, but the story of when you dressed up as Batman and
let's talk about full circle, right? So Batman comes out, right, in '89, which is huge, right? And being a comic fan, this is huge to me. So we go and see it. Oh my God, right? Just everything, right? Just fantastic. So. My buddy Terry and Debbie, right, who I did the couples with, Terry happened to work for a place called Norrell Healthcare, and they did a lot of stuff with pediatrics, kids, terminally ill children, stuff like that. So we got this idea to do appearances for the kids, So I got, I'm like, he's like, hey, would you be willing to do, dress up like Batman or, Superman, something like that. And I'm like, sure. Well, Batman had just come out, so of course. So I'm trying to gather up what I can gather at the time, right? Now, it's not like today. Today, you can go buy a whole Batman outfit, which is perfect, right? I mean, you can get off the internet, have it here tomorrow. Again, you're talking about 89, 90, okay? So they got the cowl that you can buy, right, which is the headpiece and kind of comes to here, and the gloves, and that's it. There is nothing else. Yeah, so I actually literally have to go out and we're, buying like the black tights and, I had the cowl. Okay, we got the gloves, but I had to make the belt.
Oh, wow.
There was no shoes, I had to make, kind of
So
Batman.
lead me on to when you went to the hospital this week.
So we did a bunch of appearances at some different hospitals, and one of the places was in Islip, New York. And it was a hospital for terminally ill children. Talk about tough, you know what I mean? Like, you got to go there, and it's like, oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
So we went there, and, I come in, and hey, we got a special treat, Batman's here, and, the kids go crazy, of course. So then I come in, because I'm Batman. And, so you start, kind of visiting with the kids and doing all that, and we would hand out, like, some candy and or we had some gifts for them that they would, And so that's, I'm kind of doing my Batman thing, and I was talking to one of the, I think it was a little girl, if I'm not mistaken, but, and we got talking, and, I was talking to her, and I'm asking if she likes Batman and all that, and she's little. I mean, she's only, I don't know, 8, maybe, somewhere around, young. And at some point, I was kind of leaning, squatted down, so I could talk to her.
Sure.
And we're just going back and forth, and she's, oh yeah, I like Batman, this and that. And we're talking, And at some point, I get up and I could see my buddy Terry off like in the doorway with a bunch of the nurses, and I could see some of them were crying and stuff, And I'm like, geez, I hope somebody didn't pass away while we're here. You know what I mean? It's like, geez.
Right.
So I went up and I'm like, everything good, bro? And he's like, yeah, I'll tell you after, Okay. So we concluded our thing and went. Well, later on, he told me, so apparently the little girl I was talking to had never spoken, So talking to Batman, she opened up, and so that's the first time that those nurses had heard her speak.
Wow.
Now, I didn't know any of this stuff. I just think it's a little girl, that's in the thing. But I thought that was pretty cool, that the presence of Batman or superheroes would be cool enough that she kind of broke out of her shell, and, but yeah, they were completely flabbergasted because they could never get her to talk, to
And they
say
actually
anything.
sent you a plaque or something thanking you for that moment?
Yeah, I got, they send you a nice little thing, and I did some stuff with the Muscular Dystrophy Association. And
that's not even the last thing, though, because your mom, Patty Chick, hello, Miss Chick, she was telling me a story when you were doing the Gladiators, and she said one of the most memorable moments is when you were at the Gladiators and you saw this little boy in a wheelchair, and you're like, screw everything else. You went up to this little kid in a wheelchair, and it was all about him. You don't remember?
No, I mean, I did a lot of appearances.
She remembered, but she was like, that was my most proudest moment of my son. So I wanted to share this because a lot of people don't get to know about you as far as the things you do. Like that.
Well, I would do when I was on the tour with the Gladiators, so I got accepted there as a
Are you the original Titan?
No, there was actually one before me.
So Mike's the...
No, he was after me.
He's after
so, yeah,
So who came first? So you came first before?
Yeah, there was a guy actually before me. I don't know whatever happened to him, but when I got accepted on there, they were looking for a new gladiator. Mm-hmm. And I had to go to New York City for these tryouts. There was like 30 guys, the whole thing. They took one, which was me. So,
did you wear the singlet?
Yeah, well, I had, kind of my own version because they didn't, Right. But, yeah, I got picked, and they called me, hey, you're in, blah, blah, blah. Okay, great. And then they just kind of give you the name. Like, I didn't get to pick it. They just, you're Titan.
You're Titan.
It's better than Lucen.
Do you have a mafia name because you're Italian? Like Bobby the Wrench or something?
Bobby the Wrench. No.
No? You ever thought about that? Like
no. We don't talk about the mafia stuff.
Okay, that's right.
But anyway, that was the Gladiators stuff. But yeah, when we were out on tour, they had a thing we would do at the arenas with the kids, almost like a little kids version. It was almost like a little halftime. Mm-hmm. They'd give a break, for everybody. I would go out there and do the stuff.
Yeah, but your mom
with
specifically said this was not a halftime. This was like something you're walking out and you see this boy in a wheelchair. You went immediately to this kid.
Oh yeah,
which is all about him. So that just says a lot about you as a person. But I went off topic. So going back to your bodybuilding career, when you were pro,
right?
I think the best that I've seen you was the Night of Champions.
Yeah.
Where I think you should have won.
Could have won, should have won. Me and Marcus Rule.
Best ever. And
Beauty and the Beast.
Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah.
You're the Beast? He's the Beauty?
No, not so much.
Okay.
Yeah, that was definitely one of my better, once got the pro card, competed a few times, went in the '02 Night of the Champions, and there's me and Marcus left. That's it.
All your bodybuilding career, what was your best physique that you brought to date that you loved?
It's a good question, actually. The USA will certainly stand out because I just nailed it,
Right.
The NOC was good.
That was great.
If I had to pick, I'd have to pick 3 and then take your pick because I was considerably bigger, as I went on. When I turned pro, I was only about 233, 34 pounds. So Night of the Champions, I was probably around, not much more, probably in the 40s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that
245,
was
maybe somewhere in there.
Mm-hmm.
And then closer to 250 in the Olympia.
Wow.
So I thought I was in great shape in the Olympia, and I didn't get bupkis for placing.
What was it like, your first Olympia experience?
It was cool.
Did you like, oh my God, I'm at the Olympia? And you met Joe Weider before you went to the Olympia, right?
Much, yeah. Not much. 2 years before, because here's the sequence as it is. I turned pro. I signed a contract with GNC not too long after.
You left Rochester.
And I literally got 2 paychecks in my pocket from GNC, which was enough with what I had to say, okay, I'm gonna, because my goal was always to go out to California and do the Muscle Beach thing and Gold's Gym.
And you got to do that.
Oh yeah, well finally, right? Because it was, that was supposed to happen 10 years earlier. So, so I was gone, man. I was on the next flight out. And then went with Joe Weider. They signed me to a contract.
Were you nervous meeting Joe?
No, I was excited. I was excited to meet him. How cool was that, right?
And seeing all the pictures and
Well, it was cool because I'm coming off a win. Or, hey, there's the new USA champion. So I went up and I met Joe, and we sat at the big table. You look great.
You have done so many cool things in your life. I got to tell you, you have one of the best jobs in the world. You really do.
Yeah.
You'll go into the Olympia.
Beats a real job. That's for sure.
Beats a real job. Did you ever see yourself doing what you do now?
No.
What do you think you would do if you never were an MC or a bodybuilder? You think you'd still be a police officer?
No, because I didn't even. I only lasted 3 years there. It wasn't for me.
Yeah.
So I got out when I could get out. I didn't. There was I could have stayed 20 years. I had buddies that stayed on and retired at 41. But it wasn't for me. It was too military for me.
How did you become the rep for the IFBB? Because that's another thing a lot of people
Interesting
don't know.
story. So this is going back to, it's been a while now, probably 15.
You get paid?
No, it's not.
You don't get a paycheck?
No.
Yeah. A lot of people think you
contrary
get
to popular belief, no, I am not an employee of the IFBB.
Okay.
So no, there's no paycheck
Did
there.
Jim Mannion give you the tap like now?
He gave me the sword on both
sword.
shoulders. So I wasn't actually the original rep, but I had put together an idea to put a union together for the bodybuilders. So we're going back to like 02, 03, somewhere around there. And I think it was like 03. And I thought to myself, if we were smart guys, we would have some kind of representation. You know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense. Now, they had originally brought that up back in the early 80s, and it never got any traction and just kind of bit the dust. So I bring it up. And now by this time, the internet is around, and I'm getting the people, and I'm like, now the interesting thing was it wasn't against the federation, it was for the athletes.
Sure.
But it wasn't like an us versus them type of thing. You know what I mean? I think it was misconstrued at the time where it's but guys were scared, they didn't want to rock the boat. They were afraid they'd get blackballed. It was all this stuff going on. So, but we actually had a meeting. Which maybe 20, 25 guys attended. That was all, and we discussed it, and it never really went anywhere because I couldn't get the support. Now, off the heels of that, with the federation and such, even though we weren't going to be able to get a quote union or an association together, we did actually open a door to getting a representative. So now I was competing at the time actively. Sean Ray, back again. Had just retired. So it kind of made more sense that he would be the athlete's rep, being that I was still competing.
Sure.
And that's what we did. He had to go get a bunch of signatures from like 100 pros out of, whatever, big percentage. Wayne DeMillia was still kicking around back then in charge of the IFBB Pro League. But he did. Sean did the legwork, got the names, signatures, and they put him in as athlete's rep. So he actually started out as the rep. But that only lasted like a year or so, and then
You took over.
I took over. Yeah, he wasn't really feeling it, and he didn't have the best relationship with Jim at the time.
Well, you're definitely the best candidate for the job because not a lot of people realize that you've actually had a lot of these rules put in for us. I mean, look, at one point we even had health insurance.
I did, actually.
You know,
I had health insurance for the athletes.
You've created the bikini division of
Well,
women's
no,
physique,
hang on. Let me just put it in context, okay? Because I don't create anything.
which you recommended.
I put the proposal in,
Proposal.
right, for bikini.
Now, this isn't like just, this is actually written,
Oh, yeah.
very detailed.
Yes. Yeah, it's like, hey, I got an idea.
Right.
And, bikini, women's physique, the 212, those were my proposals. Now, how it would work is, it still works, I would come up with an idea or some such thing, or a rule change or whatever. I would submit it to the Pro League. We used to have meetings at the Olympia every year, annual meetings, where all this stuff would kind of get brought up, voted on, passed or not, whatever. I would put those in, and then the Pro League would discuss it, and ultimately you'd get a yay or a nay. You know, if enough people were interested, if Jim thought it was a good idea.
You diet down, train hard, and supplement smart for months. When the time comes to step on stage, don't leave your tan to chance. Go with the pros. Pro Tan. #1 worldwide since 1987 and the official sponsor of the Olympia for the last 15 years. Don't step on stage without it. Pro Tan.
Cool thing about Jim was, and obviously we go way back, so he's, there's a very mutual respect. He's always been game for ideas. He's never shot me down. He's never just brushed me off. He's always encouraged and accepted new ideas, proposals, things. So, but, it's nice, though, because, listen, they could just shut you down, right? And go, you're not interested, whatever. But that's never been Jim's style. He's always like, look, man, you come up with a good idea. If it makes sense, we'll change it.
I think that is really cool.
So we created new divisions. We increased prize money. We got rules changed. Me and Peter McGuff, God bless him, we lost a few years ago. We used to argue in a nice way, you know what I mean? But, it's more of a fun type of argument because he loved the posing round. And he wanted it judged. And he thought it should be judged, and it's part of the sport. And as you know, I hated it. Not because I don't like the posing round, but because it was impossible to judge. You couldn't judge it. It's like, well, what are we judging it on? Mm-hmm. It's like comparing 50 Cent to Frank Sinatra. How do you do it? You don't. You can't. Well, they're two different right. So what I didn't like was about that, and the reason why I wanted to get rid of it, and I did, when I say I got the Pro League to abolish it at that time, was because it wasn't genuine. You were not getting judged on your actual posing round, or a posing routine, I should say, in that round. Mm-hmm. It was kind of more of another physique round. Mm-hmm. Because the best poser never won the pose. Listen, Sean Ray, we bring up, was a great poser, beautiful, one of the best of all time. He never won a posing round. Mm-hmm. Dorian won some.
Interesting.
Right. So you can see where this is going, right? It's like, well, look, if you're not going to judge it on its merits, then just get rid of it.
So obviously we'll never have a posing round again.
Well, you never say never. I mean, it could be revamped. It could be a different scoring system down the road, if that.
So I want to move forward because there's so much we can talk about with you. And you like to talk. So I got to kind of cut you.
That's what I do for a living.
I know. But
right?
So you won the Worlds in 2006. Mm-hmm. Right? You got the big wrestling belt, the ring, all this other stuff.
The ring. There it is.
Now, your mom and dad got you that, right?
Yes. That was a gift from the family.
See, I never knew that. So that's pretty custom, nice. So anyway, so you did that. And the interesting thing about 2006, you had the choice. Either you're going to stay the competitor or you're going to be the MC of the Olympia.
Correct. Yeah, that's
a huge decision.
Well, which was news to me because I had picked that show, when it came up and I was going to be 40, so I was like, all right. I never really had any intention of competing after 40.
Sure.
So I was like, all right, let me hit this one, last show, do or die. We made a whole series about it called War for the Worlds.
It's on YouTube, 3 hours long.
On YouTube, bodybuilding.com, right, which was a huge series. I mean, it really went great, but it's more of a life. It was kind of like before all this lifestyle stuff, we had done that. So we were one of the first people to kind of bring that in.
So tell me about your first Olympia as MC. Were you nervous?
What happens, now this is in '06, so I'm already hosting the Olympia. I'm already emceeing the Olympia at that time.
But you had a companion, though, right? Or
Sean Ray.
Sean Ray.
Who else, right?
Right, but you wasn't by yourself. This would be just
it was
you.
me and Sean for the first 2 years, and then it was just going to be me.
At 2006.
Yeah, they just wanted me on my own at that point.
Okay.
I was like,
Just
cool.
clarify.
So I win the Masters World Championships, which was the Masters Olympia. They had changed the name and kind of gone a different direction. So I win. Hey, hands up in the air. Thank you. Good night, everybody. It was Robin Chang that actually came up and said, hey, champ, congratulations. Nice job. So what do you want to do? And I was like, well, what do you mean? And he's like, well, that just qualified you for the Olympia. So do you want to compete or do you want to continue to MC it? Of course, I thought myself, how if I just introduce myself? Like, how cool would that be, right? Velcro suit.
Right.
But listen, this was an easy decision to me. Listen, even under the best circumstances, I wasn't going to beat my head against the wall at 41 years old at that time. One, you want to keep your health in check. Two, it's more of a younger man's game. Three, I never had any ambitions of going on after 40. So, and I've already got my spot. Getting good reviews. People like what I do. And I'm at the Olympia
good
podium.
At what you do.
So, thank you. And I was like, look at Robin, I'll keep the microphone. Thank you.
Very cool. So then I want to talk about something you never talk about, but I want to bring it up on here because it's my show.
There we go.
You battled cancer.
I did.
Prostate cancer. And the interesting thing was you battled this with your father together.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. I mean, I'll keep it brief because nobody wants to hear these type of stories.
What year was that? Yeah, just brief, please.
So, let me think. 2008, somewhere in that range. So my father had prostate cancer back in the 90s. Mm-hmm. And at the time, they had this new, revolutionary new way of treating it with these pellets, they'd call them. And they would insert the pellets into the prostate, and they would zap them with radiation. And it was the idea on paper was it would eradicate the cancer, but only in the certain spots that the cancer were in. Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Well, sounded good, except it didn't quite work. Didn't eradicate all the cancer. So his cancer comes back in the mid-2000s. So now they're kind of treating it. Well, it progresses, and unfortunately it goes to the soft tissue. When it wants to spread outside the prostate, that's when you got problems. Then it goes to the bone. So his was kind of progressing. We were living in California at the time, and with a newborn. We had Melania was just born, so she's like one. Mm-hmm. And so we decided to move to Florida, be closer to the family, my father, the whole thing. So there was nothing that was going to stop. I mean, I had opportunities. I passed on.
You let everything go for
other
your
stuff that was going, but this is Pops, right?
Right.
So we go to Florida, and I'm going to spend whatever time I can spend.
Yeah.
Well, when I get there, it's time for my yearly, checkup. Just like you would normally. Well, I didn't have a doctor there. Obviously, I didn't live there, so I just used his doctor. So I got the checkup, and PSA took a PSA test. Great. PSA test come back, and it's like 3.4. Now, that's not extraordinarily high, but it's higher than it should be. Generally, you want 0.
Right.
0, 0.1, 1. That's kind of it. So he says, well, look, given your dad's situation, this could be a problem. Let's be safe and get a biopsy. Okay. So I'm good to, I don't have any problems or anything. Everything's cool. So we get the biopsy. Well, in effect, what they do is they cut it up and not cut it, they kind of grit it off, like, for purposes of, and they take 12 samples. Mm-hmm. Imagine like slicing an orange,
Yeah.
Well, 4 of them came back as cancerous.
Wow.
So the top 4 pieces, so to say, came back as cancerous. Okay, so that's a problem. Well, a bigger problem is something called the Gleason score. The Gleason score is how fast the cancer is. So it's like a 2-part score. It can be slow acting. It can be fast. Well, of course, mine is at the top of the heap. Whatever the top is, I'm there. So this thing is fast, right? And because I'm thinking to myself, well, this is something I need to take care of like in the next year. And he's like, no, like you need to do this like now.
So you and your dad were going to this together.
Correct.
At this time, he's at stage 4.
Yeah, his has gone to the bone.
Yeah.
So he don't have long,
That's
type of
very
thing. So yeah, I
difficult.
got to deal with this while my dad's, dying from it in effect.
Right.
But So my path now is kind of in front of me. I got 3 choices, basically. I could do nothing, which is not going to be good. So I'm going to die. 2, I can get what he got with the pellets and the radiation, but it didn't work on him. So I don't want to, he just kind of provided that path, right? 3, I can get a prostatectomy, which means they're going to remove your prostate. And then there's things you got to consider there. So I went for number 3. I mean, it's like, well, I'm not going to treat this with stuff, because there's other things they can try, but none of it's guaranteed. But at first I says, well, why don't I do the radiation thing? And if it doesn't work, then we'll remove it. He goes, well, it doesn't really work like that. Once you do the radiation, you're not a candidate for the surgery. He says it's like putting a dish of stuff in the microwave, right? Sure. And it zaps it, right? But when you pull it out, it's all kind of mixed in. You know what I mean? He's like, well, that's kind of what happens. It's radiation. So what happens is it burns the cancer out, but it kind of makes everything kind of meld together. So you can't take it out after. So it's kind of, you got to go one way, it's a fork in the road.
So you had it taken out. And
so I said, take it out. I ain't going to take it.
And unfortunately lost your father.
Yeah. So lost Pops. And then my path was set.
Sorry. I'm not trying to get you emotional, but I just wanted to show how great of a person you are, because you really went through a lot of stuff in your life, and you still are a warrior, and you still make people smile and very good at your job, and here you are today.
Well, he provided the path for me.
Yeah.
So, knock on wood, everything's been fine since. Took follow-up tests. Everything's cool. Hasn't returned. But, it never leaves you, because at any point, like I still have to take a PSA. So even though they remove it, you're not really, you're kind of off the hook, but you're not. Because what happens is if like the first time, they're like, okay, so you need to take a PSA after. And I'm thinking, well, why would I take a PSA if they removed it?
Right.
It's gone, right? I'm good, right? And he's like, well, hang on. Yes, your prostate's gone, but it's prostate cancer cells that we're looking for. If those cancer cells had moved outside the prostate, they like to go to soft tissue, the bladder, other areas. And then eventually, if it goes to bone, or what do you call it? Drawing a blank. You got problems at that point. Lymph nodes. Thank you. So, if it goes to either of those areas, you got
But
this isn't good.
Everything's good now.
So what happens is you still have to take a test after, and what you're hoping is against with God, is that it comes back as 0. Because if you take a test after you've had it removed and it comes, let's just say it came back with a number, like, oh, good, it came back at 2.2. That's not good. That means you've got cancer cells in your body somewhere, prostate cancer cells that have now attached to other things. Now you got a problem, a bigger problem. So thank God, like I said, knock on wood, it's never come back with any number. It came back as non-detectable, and then non-detectable, and then 0. So
a funny story you told me about your father. So you were the big guy, the big face of GNC, and your father was on the GNC once, and he saw your picture.
Yeah.
And he ended up getting like every single one of them, right?
Well, they had a big GNC did this big thing. I was on as the poster boy for Pro Performance,
right.
And they did this big special at the time, and they had these big posters hanging up on all the GNCs, which was cool. And there's a picture. Actually, J.M. Mannion took it at the office. The offices, at the gym, the MPC gym. So he took a shot with me, kind of sitting there with a dumbbell on my thigh, just kind of looking at the camera. GNC Pro Performance, whatever. And I had my little, Bob Chicherillo, USA champion, blah, 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 blah. So I was like, oh, that's cool. So my father walks into the GNC. He says, hey, when do you guys, what do you do with these things, like once the promotion's over? He said, they generally just throw them away. And he goes, well, could I have, that's my son on there. Could I have that? And I'm like, yeah, sure. So once the thing ended, he popped in there and they gave it to him. But yeah, it sits in my home gym
What
now.
is the gold necklace you always wear around your?
That's from my father.
That's your dad. So he's always with you.
So that was from his grandfather. So yeah, my father's father,
Well, I didn't.
So this goes back some time. Yeah.
I didn't mean to make you emotional, but I wanted to mention that because it's just again, you're a warrior. So
I do what I can do.
I know you do what you can do. But going back to the best job in the world, voice of the Olympia.
Yeah.
What is your most memorable moment?
Oh God, there's been so.
And what
many.
do you think of the new owner, Jake Wood of the Olympia? Pretty awesome what he's done, and the crew, Dan Solomon. And
Well, listen, I mean, a lot of us were nervous when this came up, all right, because not against Jake, you know what I mean, but anytime it changes, look, we were nervous when AMI came in. You know, keep in mind, this was Joe Weider's thing, right? So it's under Joe Weider. Nobody loves bodybuilding more than Joe Weider. It's the Olympia, you know, the whole thing, right? And then AMI comes in, and you're like, all right, these are the guys that own the Inquirer and all that. You know what I mean? Like,
Right,
where's this going, right? But these aren't people with a bodybuilding background. These are businessmen. David Pecker and, you know, the people at AMI, right?
is this the key word here, businessmen?
Well, it's a business. Listen, they acquired us as a business. This could be anything. It could be a garbage company. It could be a magazine. It could be, you know what I mean? It just happens to be bodybuilding. But that doesn't mean there's any connection there. Listen, they could tank this thing to the ground or bring it in a different direction that's not good for the sport. You know, the one thing you need for this sport or for people to thrive in it is a love for the game in some respect. Now, that can be in different directions, but you need a general love for the athletes, the game itself, you know, the history of the, you know, everything, right? So thank God. I mean, it didn't go crazy under AMI, but there was things that were restricted. You know, I came up with a lot of ideas over the years. A lot of them were shot down because of budget. You know, the budget kept decreasing every year. Well, your production's going to suffer after a while. And chokes me up just thinking about it.
I hear that.
So what happens there, though, is, I mean, this is the game we love, right? So you don't want to see, we can't do it because of, budget. It's like, look, man, some things can't be measured on, I come up with stuff that I couldn't give them an idea of a return, because this is what happens. I'd come up with an idea. Hey, can we do this, sir? Okay, yeah, can you draw it up? Yeah, sure. I'd write it up, you know. So what's the return? Now, you got a couple guys that they look at numbers. They don't know anything about bodybuilding or anything.
Sure.
What's the return on this? I said, well, I don't know. He said, well, how do you expect us to, you know, fund this thing if you don't? How much is it going to cost? $50,000. What's the return on it? I don't know. Now, you can keep going around with this. The problem is I'm going to lose, right? Because they go, we're not going to put $50,000 when you're telling me you can't even give us an idea of a return. Well, not everything is measured in an immediate return. Like you know, one of these things was to put some superstars, you know, some icons in a booth at the Olympia. Hey, why don't we do this whole thing? You know, Olympia Super, you know, whatever. Call it something. Be a great fan experience. I'm looking out for the fans and the experience, right?
Sure.
They're looking at how much.
Right.
And you
Now-
can see where this isn't going to work, because it's like, well, I can't get, listen, I'm telling you, this is going to lend hugely to the expo. It's going to be a great attraction. The fans are going to love it. It's perfect. It's a way to celebrate the history, past Olympia, all this stuff. But it's going to cost us some money.
Now, you've done this. This will be your 16th year.
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
I want to say
Since 05 or,
16th year. It's Olympia. Going on 17.
yeah, I think 05 was my first, but that was with Triple H.
Yeah.
When
I
we did
remember
the
that
press
year.
conference.
Yeah.
So,
Was that real, Bob?
of course it was real. He's lucky.
He's lucky.
Yeah.
So anyway, going back to my original question, which you dodged.
Shoot.
What do you think of Jake Wood is the owner now of the Olympia?
I was getting to that. See,
But you're talking.
I
so
talk
much.
a lot. That's what I do.
I got
So,
limited time. Come
all
on.
of a sudden, AMI is going to be gone, and this guy Jake Wood comes into play. Well, we all knew Jake obviously from the Wings of Strength,
Sure.
and, you know, big supporter of the women's bodybuilding, of course, and then bodybuilding even in general after that. But this was a huge blessing, because now you got a guy who does love the sport and is willing to put his money on it, and has come on board in a bigger capacity over the years. So now it wasn't a question, because this thing was like, oh, what if this goes to like some company, you know, like just some other weird, you know, if it's an AMI, it's a .com, you know, who knows, right? It could be anybody. And there is no love, there is no nothing. It's just the numbers, you know, and all of a sudden this thing goes south. Who knows, right? So this was a big sigh of relief when for those of us that knew Jake, knew his love for the game, knew that, you know, he had a general good sense of entertainment, of bringing more, of the athletes first and all that. So it's been, you know, and listen, you know, you put your money where your mouth is, right? This thing easily could have been shut down first year of COVID. It was, if that was under AMI, it would have been done. Mm-hmm. No question in my mind, not even debatable. They would have canceled it. They ain't taking no chance, you know. And not only was it not done, not only did we persevere, but Jake said, no, we're going to go bigger, which I thought was really cool, because it's like, well, look, if there's ever an excuse to go smaller, listen, we'll just have we can't do the thing. We can do this, but we'll have it just to keep it going. No, Jake said, no, we're going to, increase this, increase that, bigger stage, bigger production. That tells you a lot.
Of course. Yeah, he's for the athletes. He has a big passion for the sport.
Yeah.
And again,
But, I mean, it would have been very easily, and nobody could have blamed him. Listen, I mean, everything was shutting down, right? Half the events were shut down. Most of the events were shut down of sports and things like that. But, we kept the ball rolling and persevered. And the last 2 years have been, I would say we did pretty damn good for, different location. And, the rest of the stories with having to switch locations in the 11th hour.
So in all these years of doing the Olympia, okay, it's not that easy, is it? I mean, it's not like what people think. You just reading names. There's a lot of stuff behind the scenes that actually happens that you have to save.
There's 100 things.
Right.
Yeah. There's a lot. It's like juggling 10 balls at the same time. There's a lot of stuff going on that you should be cognizant of as the MC. But it's anything from the flow of the show to judges. Listen, you want it entertaining, but you still got to move it. Photographers got to get their pics. It's little things like that. But you know what I mean? If you don't take charge of that, as you should, as anybody should in that capacity, I don't care whether it's the Mr. Main Street or the Mr. Olympia, you have to be in a position to make stuff happen, take care of athletes, whatever. You know what I mean? There's things that happen. And that's every Olympia. I mean, not every Olympia something's going on. There's 100 things that go on that nobody ever sees, but that's the beauty of production. If you're real good at it, nobody ever sees it.
Like you've covered up a lot of stuff.
I just do what
And
I can.
I know some of it's top secret. You can't tell us, but I have an idea of some of the things. But where do you see the Olympia in 5 years?
If it keeps going at this pace, which there's no question in my mind, I mean, this thing could explode at any time. It's right there. It's right for the pickings. It's in the right direction. I could just see this thing being twice as big in 5 years.
Are you still going to be the Olympia in 5 years?
I'll be there as long as
You know how many people kill to have your job?
Listen, it's the best seat in the house.
It is.
Right?
Because you get to see all these legends and be around everyone. Like there is not one person you have not met.
It's cool. No, I mean, you pretty much meet everybody, but no, listen, it's the coolest job in the world, right?
And your best friend is Dave Bautista, who comes to a lot of
it doesn't
shows.
hurt, I mean,
Right?
Dave and anyway. But listen, it's great to see these celebrities and all that, but it's.
But you're not really the selfie guy until like this past
Hey,
Olympia.
huh? Okay.
Yeah, but you blurred it. Like it had your fingerprint over the.
Listen, I was making that up on the spot. Okay, that wasn't in the original program, but
The tie was great.
See, we had a
That was
tie.
perfect.
We did have a tie on the Olympia stage.
Was there actual? I didn't get to see.
Yeah,
Was
it was
there a
lost
tie?
in the expo floor, and it was turned in. That's why I was showing it in case anybody wanted to claim it. But
Everybody was pissed at you for that. Like, come on, Bob.
even better was because I like to bust Jim's balls when we're on stage because we've been doing this for so long. So, like when we had Brandon and Rami up there, if you notice, if you go back to the tape, I actually yell out and knew,
Right.
or no, not and 2-time.
Oh, right. Yeah, because they're
Both one-time winners. So I looked over at
Right,
Jim,
yeah,
and he kind of leaned in and he kind of laughed, and I could read his mouth. He said they both won. But I'll always try to come up with something just to listen. You got to keep things entertaining. You got to have fun at these shows, right? But more importantly, you got to not screw it up.
No.
That's the key. And let me tell you, it's not easy because it's not all me. I mean, I can only do so much. You are literally beholden to. I'll tell you who the most important people are is the scorekeeper, as we saw the other year,
Right. Yeah.
and the backstage expediter.
Right.
Now, why do I say this? Because without these two people, you could have some major, and we've had some issues over the years of things that have come up, mostly from production standpoints. But if you get the wrong name, you get the wrong name, right? All you can do is try to recover and not look like Steve Harvey, right? I mean, that's all you can do.
No.
But listen, stuff happens. The idea is to take anything that comes your way and to make it right, or make it funny, or make it do something, right? Just don't
just stand there like.
don't
a
just
deer in
stand
headlights.
there. Yeah.
So you real quick, so we got to wrap things up. 'cause,
What?
I know we could talk to you for hours. It's all that talking you do, Bob. So you've been in a few movies, a lot of movies actually, and you have the most famous ass in history on Dodgeball, where they just zoom in on your ass and all you see is just thump thump thump.
That was my ass. Yeah.
Did you have people like wanting to like? Look
That was that wasn't even supposed to be in the movie.
your ass?
What happened was they thought it was funny because of course I come on and I'm the big bodybuilder, and the whole thing, and so they're going to have me in this part that you see on there where I'm curling, you know, and Ben Stiller comes up in his, you know, character, and he's like, "Hey, you're looking good,
That
Rory." You know?
mustache.
Yeah, and so that was my big part, you know. Unfortunately, I just came into the production late. Otherwise, I would have got on as a one of the Cobras there or whatever
cool.
I could have gotten one of those spots, and I missed the. I didn't know anything about it, you know. By the time it come to my attention, it was late, so they got me in on that, and then we were all sitting around. They had this panning shot where they had the girls in these little shorts, and they were on the
And
steppers.
there's yours.
Yeah, and they thought it would be funny. The guy's like, "Hey, why don't we put him in one of those and put him on?" You know, so that's what we did. I grab a pair of these things and I put them on, and as they're panning, you know, all the girls, I'm
then you
the
see
last
big-
one on there. Yeah, so
I remember that.
claim to fame.
But listen, you've done so many awesome things, and I can talk forever. I mean, you've been on many multiple magazine covers, Flex magazine, and some other ones.
I got a few. Yeah,
From all over the world. You've been in many movies, TV shows. You have a papal blessing.
I do.
You've been on comic book stuff. You was actually
Yeah.
Thor, Captain America. For
I modeled for Marvel Comics.
yes, I mean, how
So
many people?
I
can
actually
say
have
they-
cover shots of me as Captain America and Thor, and that.
Is there
it's kind of
anything?
cool,
Is there anything you haven't done?
like Forrest Gump.
You have a Steve Reeves collection. You have
Yeah, I
a
got-
lot of old school nostalgia of bodybuilding.
A lot of
stuff.
memorabilia. Yeah, I love collecting it here and there.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
by the way, where's your mask? You're not wearing your mask in here.
We're all done with the masks. We're finished.
Oh, listen, Mr. Chicherillo, Mr. Chick, do you have any other nicknames? I know there's some bad ones. That
Yeah, it depends on who you talk to, but no, I think that's
Angry Bob.
Angry Bob. Yeah.
Angry Bob, Bizarro Bob.
That was given to me by a little kid, actually. Me and Tom Prince, God bless him, we just
Yeah,
lost
sorry
him,
about your loss.
who was one of my best friends. But we were in a store, like a supermarket. And, you know, now we're all jacked up at the time. We're both competing, right? Tom's 280, you know, I'm whatever I am, right? So we're not small. And some little kid was next to his mom, and he looks up and he goes, "Wow." And he goes, "Hey, man, are you a wrestler?" And this kid's like
Sure.
10, you know. And I go, I says, no, I'm a bodybuilder. He goes, "Oh, so what's your bodybuilding name?" You know, no, he's thinking like a wrestler, like, you know,
Sure,
like, who are
sure.
you type of thing. And I go, "Well, what do you mean? We don't, you know, have bodybuilder names like, you don't have names like wrestlers?" And I go, "No." And he goes, "So you don't have a name like," he goes, "Well, what's your name?" I go, "My name's Bob." And he goes, "So you don't have a name like Angry Bob?" Well, of course, Tommy fell down laughing. Right? He thought that was the funniest thing. So he called me Angry Bob for the next
Well, listen,
year.
you are known for being a verbal assassin. You cut people down all the time.
Is that good or bad?
It's a good thing.
You mean like with the stat class type
A
things?
stat class
Yeah.
and all these other things, but you keep it real. Like you call it like you see it, which
Yeah.
is great. And some people don't like you for that, but you
Hey.
know what? Screw them, right?
Exactly.
But anyway, it's been a pleasure here. Give a shout out to whoever your sponsor, Max Out, which is your supplement line.
Max out, yeah, supplement
Max
line that
Power,
we
right?
put out there. Max Power,
Max
yeah,
Power.
we got some other new ones we're working on, and
Are you officially retired?
I should make an official announcement.
make
Yeah,
one.
on the heels that somebody else just made that
Yes.
official. Yeah, since 08.
Well, anyway, give us all your social media and all that good stuff.
Social media. I am modernized now. I've gotten past MySpace. Yeah, finally.
Your stuff's old, dude.
It is old, I know, but you're always on my ass about this stuff.
Yeah.
But no, listen, I'm on Instagram, right? IFBB Pro Bob Chick,
Okay.
right?
All right, moving
Facebook,
up,
you can
moving
catch
up.
me on there. Right? I
Yeah,
got a
you got
fan
the fan
page.
page, yeah.
I got all that stuff. I'm
Don't you have some guy that writes you all the time about being in his hot tub and laying by the fire and he wants
listen,
to...
I get a lot of weird stuff, but
Anyway.
not as nearly as much as you. So
Can you give us a wrap out, like send us off with a MC? By the way, is it easy to be an MC? Is it easy? No, right?
No.
Okay. Anyway, give us a wrap up with your amazing voice, like, something cool.
the wrap up.
Yeah, like wrap us up.
All right. Well,
I can't do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, bodybuilding fans of all ages, thank you for tuning into the Fit Rockstar Show here at Olympia headquarters.
Wait a minute. What about all the sexy people? Do it again. I want to hear the
They're at
sexy
the
people.
Olympia. They're waiting.
No, that's
They're
here.
waiting for us in
We're not
Vegas.
sexy in here. Come
Yeah,
on.
there's some sexy people here. I see.
Can you do it for me
Hey,
one more
there's
time?
Jake.
One more
Yeah.
time. One more time. Sexy people.
All right. We got to do it again?
Yes.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, bodybuilding fans of all ages, especially all the sexy people here at Olympia headquarters in Chandler, Arizona. We'll catch everybody next time.
That's a wrap.